Apologies, it seems we have to have the normie size map. Fingers crossed that can get fixed soon. But you know what? I actually think it's absolute crap that my map is not bigger with Capture H. So, like anyone dealing with a lot of crap, I'm going to need to get myself some TP. That was a terrible segue. I hate myself right now. All right, but let's see if, like, the thing he wipes off his ass, he is exactly that, or if he's a badass, because we've got TP Collector versus Lash. And they're playing French versus Mongols. Now, for those wondering who TP Collector is, it's a familiar QT. It's someone we know. If you check on AoE4 Worlds or any of those type of sites, you check their profile, you might be forgiven for thinking that it is Probe, because the profile picture is that of Probe. But that's just a ha-ha-ha jebaited. This is not Probe, player from SC2. This is a different SC2 player. He even has it in his username. It is Sort of, of course, from Red Bull Wololo. I'm sure you're all familiar with him. Very talented player, especially when you consider the amount of time he had playing Age of Empires 4 compared to everyone else present at Red Bull Wololo. Sure, he didn't pop off and come in the top, but like if you think about the hours he put in compared to, I'd say, 75% of the other players, the fact that he was even there was impressive. So, looking forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do as we look forward towards Golden League in about a month's time. Golden League 2, of course. And it seems like he's actually been practicing with Lash at the moment. Like, they played a lot of games. I checked, and there's like maybe close to 10 custom games in a row. Some of them just a reset up to 30 seconds. But some of them dragging out for a decent amount of time. This one, as you can tell by the clock, we are going to be in for longer than 30 seconds. And that means we're going to get to see whether someone is thinking School of Cavalry or if they want a Chamber of Commerce. I don't know if did I subtly pronounce my R enough to sound French? I think so. So we were just talking about the Chamber of Commerce, by the way, because the Abbasid Tradewing build is already popping, even quicker than I expected. And the idea of opening with free traders can supplement the loss of something else. What I'm curious to see is if going for the Chamber of Commerce can supplement the loss of a free stables on Tech Up, as well as the 20% production speed ramp up you get from School of Cavalry, which, of course, applies to all your stables. We're going to get to find out, because it's going to be a Chamber of Commerce build. And this is going to get to be a very interesting game, because it's likely that on the other side, after initial aggression, Lash should be going for the Silver Tree, as people typically would in this situation, right? Like, Silver Tree has become the de facto king of the Mongols across just one patch. Remember when no one but a memer would build it? Well, now everyone does it. It feels like anyone who builds a Deerstone is the one who's actually really meming. But something that hasn't really changed too much with the Mongols is this opener. The racks into the Spearman pull. Double Villager. Love this detail by Lash. Some people bring just one, and it's way too greedy. It allows your opponent to count you out quite freely. By the way, Spearman got nerfed on the Mongols. The Mongols used to have 12 torch damage. Now they only have 10. So they're a little bit slower to burn down these buildings. Buildings that won't be as important for sort of here, because this mining camp has already served its purpose. You shouldn't need gold at the beginning of your tech up. Before anyone goes, wait, but why would he not need gold? He's building a Chamber of Commerce. I mean, gold is commerce. Like, if you want to build traders, you need gold, KP. You're an idiot. Calm down, folks. For once, I'm not an idiot. As long as he starts getting some techs, doesn't need the gold. He'll get the traders for free. Because every single eco upgrade you have is going to queue a trader in the Chamber of Commerce. Now, this is still not as powerful as the Abbasid opener, though. And that means it's not going to be totally for free. And oh, Lash. He almost got the perfect surround before. Villager will pull away just in time. And it's going to be a rush up. So, tech up complete. Remember, Lash has slowed down his own timing. And now you'll see the Chamber of Commerce in action. Immediately, one trader gets queued up because you already had forestry researched. And I believe some people tested this. It does work retroactively. So if you put a Chamber of Commerce after you research wheelbarrow and forestry, it will know that you've researched those and queue traders for free. But this is what I'm talking about with it being weaker than the Abbasid opener. Long term, it's better because you get more traders for free, whatever. Short term, it's weaker because you're producing them one by one with a regular production time of 25 seconds. versus an Abbasid trade wing that spawns free traders immediately the second you complete into Fuel Age. So definitely feels a lot weaker in that regard. Looks like for now, Lash is letting the trade go on, but I imagine the plan here, he should have seen this with the vision he got from the outpost. He'll probably wait until it circles back and then just hop around the other side and stab down the trader. Easy enough to do. 1 second, I just realized that I have the wrong control group on, so bear with me 1 second. Have to have my observing. So we can switch it like that. But Archer's already out, right? So Lash now needs to catch up. He has gone for the Silver Tree choice. Would love to see a stables built right now. Just get 2 horsemen out and intercept this trader. Don't even let him get 1 return. Because the problem is, like, the cool thing about the French is if you do scale up these traders, you can select what they return. It can be gold, it can be wood, it can be food. So even if you feel confident you've shut down certain resources that you believe sort of is going to need, he still actually has a way of getting them elsewhere via the traders. And just to confirm people, it only spawns traders for free from your eco upgrades. Military ones have no effect, so anything in a military building will not count. Now, one interesting one that I think will become part of the meta if you start seeing this play is to actually get textiles. Because your villages in some ways kind of become more valuable when you go into the mass traders. Because in most cases, you're just going to prioritize gold. So you still need to keep your food and woodworkers safe at home. And of course, if you think about the maths on this, you know, you'd normally pay 120 resources for a trader. Instead, you're paying 150 resources while also bumping your village's health by 50%. Actually, I'm curious. Don't actually quote me on that, because now I think about it, I'm not even sure textiles counts. You guys are seeing why, right? Because you get the 30% discount as the French, right? Wait, is it 30%? I'm certain it's 30%. Textiles does not count. Thank you, Mr. Merlin. That's what I was about to say. So I did not think textiles counted as soon as I hovered over it, because you can see it's the full price of 50 food and 100 gold. So if you want to know what tech ups actually get the effect of Chamber of Commerce that spawns a free trader, the easiest way to look at it is just check and see if the tech gets a discount and if it's an eco building. If it ticks both of those boxes, 100% it will give you a free trader. But if you look at, say, textiles here, which is an eco building, but doesn't have the discount, that'll be a surefire way of telling that you won't be able to get the free trader. Speaking of which, how many traders are we up to now? Like, what, 3? Or was it 2? He's still only on 2. Huh. Feels kind of weak. I don't know, man. This opening feels kind of rough up against Mongols, and you're seeing why. Like, sure, Lash has paid for it, but remember, he's got passive stone production, so he's already got 2 traders compared to the only 2 now third of Sword of. Oh, man, and Sword of's going with stone as well. This is getting really greedy. Textiles is no eco upgrade. I mean, the problem is, like, from a lot of people's perspective on how they get these, they would assume that it's anything in an economy building, which Town Center is an economy building. I'm telling people for, like, clarity, literally just check if it gets a discount. If it gets a discount, you're Gucci. If it doesn't, no bueno. I think that's the easier way to think about it, because most of us, like, can tell if we're getting a discount on these techs. Mid-map, though, only the first night has just come out as well for Sword of. You're seeing the difference in the timings, right? Like, 8.5 minutes in, even though Lash slowed down his tech up timing this much, he hasn't suffered because of this different build from the French. And he has at least got the free melee upgrade, but if you think about the comp he has to counter, it's useless to him as well. He has to get the steeled arrows. Definitely has a lot of archers at his disposal, but if you're Lash and you just, like, body him now with horsemen, you can shut down the trade and also block him out and stick him in his own base nowhere else, right? Like, he won't be able to move out onto pocket resources like the French usually do. I think that's the cumbersome part about this. If you want to do this build with the French, you're not really playing France anymore. You're playing a completely different Civ that doesn't play tempo aggressor, because your timing's too delayed. Against pretty much any other Civ, they should be able to get units and be more aggressive than you. Horseman coming in to show that aggression, but a little bit too slow on the pinch. Well, just deal with the traders, though. I like this play. There's enough horsemen here to do this. And sure, you know, you're going to lose 1 or 2, but if it shuts down the trade while yours continues to escalate, you're actually happy with this. Remember, at home, Lash has already got trade going on. In fact, he's trading to both corners. I love this. So he's up against Knights, right? And you don't know where these Knights are going to show up because when you look at the vision, he doesn't see much. Neither of them do. So his logic here is I might lose some traders, but I will not lose all of them. And this is going to guarantee him reaching Castle Age ahead of poor sort of here, who has become predictable, right? If we talk about trade versus trade, even if half yours get through, you're now in a position where you can keep blocking any of swords from going through because you know exactly where they're going to be. Just on the move though. Looks like they are going to try to shut. Dude, this is like I can't emphasize enough just how sneaky this was of him. It looks like he is now going to get scouted out, so this will now be walled off. But he got like what 2 or 3 traders for at least before this became a problem. And now the archers are pivoting to the left side, so they were never going to counter it directly. Horsemen looking to engage with this. Spearmen in the mixer as well, so remember those knights can't fight back. Horsemen. They did have an issue in the Dark Age. I don't think it exists in the Feudal Age. For those that didn't quite check the patch notes, the Mongol Dark Age Horsemen weren't actually doing the correct damage on charge, but that's been fixed. So just in case it applied to the Feudal units, it isn't going to be an issue here. He continues to just push back against this. All the spears have been expended, but notice the archer count is low. Spearmen are easily replaced after this, and the key detail for Lash is if he just keeps this up, they just keep going around in circles like this, he knows he'll be better off due to the amount of traders he has. Traders that are now being chased by one of the Knights. And you guys are astutely starting to realize the issue with Chamber of Commerce. It seems good, but it has to be about those initial traders, because the cost efficiency only really exists with the first few, right? When you're talking about getting your level 1 on the rock gathering, right, for the gold mines and the stone. When you're getting your wheelbarrow, when you're getting your level 1 food gathering rate, and maybe pro scouts if you're going to use it. If you're not going to use it, not at all. You can go for the alternative there, right? The other one's like, I think it comes down to, is it 75 resources total? I'm trying to remember. What was the base cost? It's pretty cheap actually, isn't it? It's even cheaper than that, if I'm not mistaken. Survival Techniques gets absurdly cheap with French. So there's 100 resources normally, so you're paying pretty much nothing, like 70 resources. That's a good exchange, right? Instead of 120 resources. Forestry is another amazing one. I think it's like 25 or 50 resources. Incredible one to get. But once you move past that, the trader value is less from these free trader spawn. It's just simply a bigger discount on what you're paying for something you already want. And that becomes problematic, I think. Especially when you think about what you're giving up. Well, some interesting discussions going on. Mongols get 6 free with the stone at the same time and get to move the trader? Exactly. That was the point I was trying to make. Like, this passive stone equaled this out. But once again, I would highlight that this compared to, say, the Abbasids, I actually would prefer the Abbasids trade opening. Because I think there is a lot more opportunities to Stepping Stone to Castle Age cleaner. And on top of that, you immediately have 3 traders the moment you hit Feudal Age that are moving out of your base towards the trade post. When you do this as the French, even if you pump the text beforehand, they're going to queue. So you're going to have to wait 75 seconds to get the same amount of traders in the field. It just doesn't feel as impactful to me. You know, obviously this is just a small sample group. This is only one game, but definitely feels a little bit flimsy. That being said, you know, after everything that's happened here, Lash has kind of failed to take favorable engagements, and I think that's an understatement here. Like, it's much worse than favorable engagements being missing. He's just been getting absolutely rinsed. Just look at the destroyed value on both sides here. Very problematic situation now for Lash. I don't think he actually got enough traders per se. In fact, with this many knights and this many archers, this could become a very cut and dry game for Swordov. I don't actually think that the French build should outright win against this. But I do think Swordov played his build really well. Like the way he countered Lash and forced him into these choke points that he didn't want to be in. That being said, Lash is beating him to Castle Age by a substantial margin. And it is going to be Kurultai as well. Now, Kurultai did get buffed immensely. I was doing cartwheels when I read these changes. It's what I've been begging for a long time. Kurultai now affects bonus damage. What does that mean? It was already bonus damage. No. Hear me out, folks. Kurultai used to only affect base damage. That means that, for example, when you have an archer here, and the archer does 6 damage with his bow, but +5 to melee infantry, if you put him near a Kurultai, he was only getting 25% bonus damage on his 6 damage. Since the patch, this now applies to the bonus damage. So instead, you'd be adding 25% damage to 11 damage when you're attacking light melee infantry. It's a substantial change, especially for certain comps. Let's say you're playing into Siege. It's remarkable. My issue here, Lash is not playing into Siege at all. He has no play towards Siege right now. He needs a Mangonel. If he gets 1 Mangonel, that is actually a pretty big deal. So if he gets 2 Mangonels, that's going to break the back of the formation. So the really big difference here to keep in mind Mangonels is this change isn't going to take a Mangonel from 2 or 3 hit to 1 hit. But the way that the Mangonel works in that situation is usually you would do 54 damage at the center of your attack from Mangonel. That's quite a lot of damage against a range unit. Well, by buffing it, you go up to 67.5 damage with 25% extra. Now, if you consider the spread arc and how less damage gets done on the edges, this buff to the Mangonel should allow you to, with 2 Mango shots spread out to each side of the formation archers, crush most of them, if not all of them. Because while the ones in the center are still going to be like heavily hit either way, the ones in between are now going to take so much damage. It's essentially like they were just being hit in the center in the first place. It's a pretty big deal. The biggest change with Siege is going to be in the way that trebuchets perform next to a Kurultai, but also how Springles perform. Hopefully we'll be able to find a match between the Mongols and the Chinese to present this, because with this change to the Kurultai, the Mongol Springles next to Kurultai are now capable of 2-hitting pretty much any Chinese siege weapon that comes out of a clock tower. But we'll focus on that for another game. For now, we've got Kurultai up against the French, so we don't have to worry about that. It's going to be a mind melt if he actually gets the Mangos, but so far Lash is showing no intent to go towards it. I really hope that changes. It's tough for him, right? He hasn't got many people trading right now. Meanwhile, just look at what's happening in the back of Sortov's base. I mean, this is just the compound effect, the snowball effect, right? The way he played this mid-game. Now his army just feels very budget. Very incapable of taking the fight as well. I mean, I don't really know if Lash can do anything here. Gonna try anyway. Knight's gonna wrap around the side. Now, it looks like there was an attempt to wait out the tech up time. He's done exactly that. 3 seconds till the veterancy is going to come out. The Kurultai is only unpacking now. That's too little, too late. Lash is going to lose the army. Fortification is going to come through. This is a full hold coming out from Sortov. He will not hold. He will not fold. He will instead hold. And Lash, after this, I mean, any small trade route he had set up again is just going to be going to 0. I wouldn't be surprised if that's just game. Kurultai, while it did get buffed, it still has this substantial issue it always had. If you lose a fight, it cannot leave. Watch what happens. You run past it, and you grab it, and you never let go. Like, that's not how you run past it, you grab it, and you never let go, folks. Say it with me now. You're on past. Okay, I'm going to stop it. He's going to get the pinch, though. There it is. Yep. All right, so I guess we're going back to normal server talk now. Kurultai is the worst landmark in the game. Okay, admittedly it has the upside to it now, but when this happens, it doesn't feel like it. We'll be able to march it away, courtesy of more troops being thrown to the wolves. But what an awkward way to have to use that landmark. It didn't get packed out straight away, so no bonus damage coming through. It's crazy as well. If he'd had that bonus damage, I think he would have cleaned up the knights very quickly there and had a few left over of his own to deal with his archers. Instead, end of the day, Sortov is the one with a standing army. Lash is not. And Sortov has sort of been escalating that economy. You know, it's got to be said. Those numbers are going up for him. Also, other important thing to remember. When you play the game like this, like Lash did, and you go for the trade, and the trade gets shut down, and then you tech up into Kurotai, you have 0 economical boosts. You do not have a step readout. You do not have many traders. So affording mass Lancers becomes quite the difficult thing to do as a Mongol player. Oh, I see people using the word bands again. I just noticed that. So the French knockouts, the ones that always ride in on heavy cavalry, are doing a good job of keeping Lash at bay. Now, Lash, the problem here is he has no easy way in. These Lancers. I don't know how long you'll be able to sustain this play, actually. Especially what's happening on the other side. It's no longer about the not Lancers from sort of. He's switching into Arbre de Trier, which is a cost-effective solution, especially when you have choke points to funnel your opponent towards. Lash is going to need those mangoes if he wants to make this now work. And he's still not gone into siege at all. While backside. Not Lancers are on the move. Should be able to snipe out a few traders here. They'll eventually die, but the more important detail is that Lash's eco is dying with this, right? He has plenty of gold, so maybe he doesn't care. But that's kind of all that he has right now. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think Lash is trying to rush Imperial Age. I guess that's one way when, you know, the game feels done. I mean, I too, when I have a really big problem that looks like it's going to cripple me and stop me from being able to do anything, like to bury my head in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist. Which is exactly what Lash is kind of doing about the French threat right now. The French threat eventually is going to get so big that it's going to overwhelm you. It's got to be said. Arbre de Trier count is now plus 20. I think you're going to get washed if you take this fight. The only upside you have for your Lash is you do at least have the Yam, so you can disengage from poor fights. And you can even maybe stop these raids if you're close enough. The bad news for Lash fans, I don't see a world in which he should be able to crack Imperial Age ahead of Sortov. If that does happen, Sortov's army should be big enough that it just ends the game. So Lash has to actually win fights here in Castle. What other routes can he take here? I mean, Lash, you now know you can't get Imperial. I like that he's adding the siege. We've been begging for the siege for a while. Mangonels are your one play back in this game. Remember what we said. It's going to be an important detail to watch in this fight. If Sortov takes a fight near the Kurotai, and those mangoes each get a shot out onto the Arbre de Trier, you will destroy half of them. Trust me. If you click one here and then one in the mid formation, you'll take out probably half, close to half. Damage is no joke, folks. Let's see if he gets to use it, though. See the heavy cavalry trying to wrap around. Mango trying to go for the shot. Remember, they increased the radius. Well, if you miss once, shoot twice. Damage a little bit better there. Bunch of Arbre de Trier going down. Mangoes are about to follow up again. Remember, that damage heavily impactful. Front line needs to hold, though. Notice that Lash is going to break away early, because if this falls, it means the heavy cavalry will go in and end the Mango's life. Kurotai is unpacking again. Buff comes out, and this will allow him to stand his ground. Great play from Lash, but great wraparound from Sortov. He gets rid of one of the Mangoes. If he can get the second, he can still win this fight. It seems he's unable to. The heal factor, remember, it does affect the Mango as well. So front line is going to fold. Back line is going to be broken. Sortov is going to lose the entire army. Great hold from Lash. Looks like he's going to have to back away. Tries to get some value out in the retreat. That's the beautiful thing, right? You move away from that Mango, it can't shoot on you, but got to give it to him there. Lash, the critical play there was making sure you move the Kurultai forward so it affected the front line as well. Not only did it buff their damage, it gave them this +2 health, or +1 rather health a second, which has allowed them to just be more HP efficient throughout the engagement. Especially when you consider the way that was played out by sort of a wide line. He wasn't necessarily focus firing one target at a time, so really great hold coming out there. And Lash getting some much needed control on the mid-map from that engagement. Now it's a case of whether you want to try to push the momentum or if you want to try and go into Imperial Age. It looks like he's flirting with the idea of Imp. Genuinely, I think you go for a break-in here. If you want Imp, the best thing you can do here is just dive into the trade, shut that down for a little bit to slow down the reboost of Sort of, and that should cover you in your Imperial chase. The alternative is you just fully invest now and go in for a kill. Because you have to look at it from the perspective of what just happened. Sort of threw away an army, essentially. That army is expensive to replace. A lot of Arbitraries died, a hell of a lot of Knights died. Sure, you've got all this trade going on, but that's not going to really solve your food issue, right? So you could have all this gold, but even if you do a Sort of, you're probably reinvesting it into either wood to build more farms or buying food outright. Lash, he's looking to break in, shut down that trade. And yes, Lucio, I'm aware he can just put his traders on food. I'm glad you mentioned that. He could. Hear me out. He could. I mean, in fairness, he's got the farms going. The reason I didn't mention it is I've kind of given up mentioning that you can go on food at this point, as I've watched many a trader French game, and either the UI doesn't work and they have been doing it, or they just simply never do it. But either way, I never get to see food traders. Breaking complete. Trade has been shut down. Sort of. He's going to have to go on the gold, and I think he knows it. With his villagers. Because he's not getting it from the trade post anymore, and he's going to need it to keep boosting these Knights and Arbitrarie numbers. Mangoes, remember, this is the Mongols. They can build them out in the field, so unless you can kill the army, you're not going to kill the push. Raids on the backside will at least try to return the favor of shutting down some trade. The Kurultai has been left at home, so Lash, while he's in on the flank, isn't treating this as the end game push that works or breaks him. You can see the Sort of trying to break him this wraparound. Backstab attempt incoming. Mangoes, shots coming out. Beautiful dodge. And now the wraparound spin to try and hold. Mango's being targeted. One is going to hit the floor, though, and this should be a swarm. Sort of on the home field has the advantage here. Lash is going to lose the army and be pushed back to base. Now, Lash has thrown everything behind this, it has to be said. He's got plenty of gold in the bank, but nothing else to speak of here. Meanwhile, Sort of, his economy, although slowly hit there, continues to boom. His military count continues to escalate. Now with a double-up risk in favor of Sort of. Lash is going to find himself in quite the bind. Especially if he doesn't bring the Kurultai. I mean, this Kurultai not being there, you can see the day and night difference it makes. It is actually a strong landmark in these situations. Not having it, it's crippling. Think about it from the spear comparison, right? Those spears, they try to defend the Mangonels, but the Knights just commit and kill you. Imagine if you had the Kurultai. 25% bonus damage to both your base and bonus damage up against cavalry. That's pretty nuts when you think about it, actually, folks, right? Normally, you'd be doing 34 damage. You're doing over 40 damage per spear. Knights do not last long at that stage. But sadly, didn't want to risk the Kurultai. It's kind of the unfortunate nature of this landmark, and it's where it doesn't feel right as the game goes on. Think about the dynamics of Age of Empires 4 Warfare. In the early mid-game, it's the possibility, although you may raid, there's this possibility of going in and ending the game. When you reach into the hyper late game, usually things turn into these raid compact formations, right? Send horsemen on the flank, 40 of them go down here. Replace, 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 push, push, push. But you might give and take land in that regard. You don't often get a situation if both players are on balance in the late game where one player parks themselves and slowly proceeds, unless you're playing English or Chinese. Something like the Mongols don't function that way because they don't have choke points to control the narrative that way. Why that's a problem is the Kurultai lends itself towards a slow-moving comp that can't be moved, that is immobile when something comes to push it. That's not really how the Mongols' late game works, not often anyway. Not unless you've got 50+ outposts set up already. So maybe hyper, super duper late game with the Hui Papao trebuchets, I could see Kurultai coming back into the picture. But in this 25 to 40 minute point in the game, Kurultai is going to struggle to find anything but defensive value. Well, I did mention those raids on the flank. You're now seeing what's happening. This is what I was talking about. He'll try to pack up the Kurultai and bring it, but it's nowhere nearby. And the Rat, sort of, he's put on his tentacle outfit here. He's being tentacruel, cruel on both the flanks. Takes engagement on the east, pushes in on the west. Mangoes, although they're going to keep him at bay, they will not stop him from looking for fights, and the wraparound is going to find those Mangoes. The pack up, move away. Kurultai is being unpacked, but the Mangonels somewhat exposed. Front line, not looking like it's going to hold for long. Nemo, the backside has been raided in. I think this will be it. Lash trying to hold in that choke point, but this choke point works against him. He's massed melee units, so he's not even actually using that full DPS. And sort of, even if he eventually loses this fight, he's going to win elsewhere. This game is done. I honestly don't think Lash has the push behind him to get into the base anymore. The Sword Art's economy, his military has gotten so big that he got bored of just fighting alone. He wanted to casually murder some innocent villagers and traders alongside him. Still a nice little preview into the new Mangonel interaction with the Kurultai, though. Shows you how it can pack quite the wallop. For comparison, you know, you've added an extra 6 damage times 3 that's getting multiplied by that extra 25%. So it definitely adds up to kill off backlines faster. But you know, when you're this far behind going to the stage of the game as eco, you just don't have this ability to park it aggressively. As we mentioned, if you can't get in an aggressive position, you're never using it for anything other than to buffer away counter assaults or to heal injured units. What do you think, guys? This opening, do we like the Chamber of Commerce? I said I was willing to admit that I maybe wasn't like on the mark with my patch note video when I said that I thought people would always go School of Cavalry. I don't think I've been fully convinced by this opening from sort of, though. Like, this is a mixture of him playing well and Lash getting baited into bad engagements to get to this stage. Whether this is going to work as an opener against a lot of players, I'm not sure yet. But I understand the value that's being placed on it in a lot of people's eyes. The whole logic of, you know, the early techs essentially just getting these traders for half price while still getting your tech. It's pretty good, right? When you get something like forestry, and forestry is paid for by the cost of a trader, it seems quite nice. We'll have to see if it's long-term worth it. In this type of game, you know, arriving at this stage, I think if you get this late into a game, there is an argument that School of Cavalry will always be better because that 20% production speed increase. And it's kind of funny how it didn't matter in this game because of how big of a lead sort of built, but it's what we talked about earlier, opportunity costs. When you go for Chamber of Commerce and you sacrifice that early stables, or you sacrifice that late game where the 20% production speed is definitely going to matter, you have to argue, what do I get in return? And in this game, at least, sort of seems to have gotten enough out of it. Imagine he might have just gotten enough to end this game with the tech up. College of Artillery's on the way. I'd be surprised if Lash hung around for any reason other than seeing how the new cannon ability works. Because I legit don't feel like you're nowhere near pop cap, right? And you're about to be a full age behind. I don't feel there's any way you can win this. I also think Lash has been a little bit lost with his eco for a while. I think this is the first time I've looked up his economy and not seen gold in excess of 3,000. You know, it's great. Don't get wrong, folks. With the way the economy is going, the way the world's playing out right now, yeah, saving gold's not the worst of ideas. It's definitely better than investing in Zoo Token. But in a video game of Age of Empires 4, you really want to find a way of spending that. There it is. The big shinies arrive. Imperial Age up. for sort of Lash. I imagine he was feeling good for a second where he's like, oh, nice, he teched up, I can go. But now that he's seeing the army, he wants no bloody part of it. Bloody is correct, folks. Like, this will be an absolute massacre, especially if he waits any longer. Tech ups are coming through. Knight and Horseman upgrade in just 30 seconds. Royal Bloodlines already in position as well. March in. This should be the end of the road for Lash. Quadruple Mangonel seems good in theory, but in practice may not work out that way. The Knights are just too damn tanky for the Spears to deal with. The wraparound battalion from the north side. Beautiful chef kiss of a flank to round this one out. Everything has been thrown at the wall, and everything has failed to break it. Sort of, with the Chamber of Commerce opening, will be out the Silver Tree Mongols. Oh, now you arrive. Typical Kurosai.